Julian Blackwood didn't look at her face first. He looked at her name tag. Then her shoes. Scuffed, splitting at the sole. He smirked. Aaliyah Vance had been on her feet for 11 hours. The Rothwell Lounge in Manhattan smelled like saffron and old money. At 8:47 p.m., the dining room pulsed with inherited wealth, laughter that never worried about rent, hands that never checked prices. Her shoes were cheap, her back burned, her phone buzzed silently in her pocket. She didn't check it. Because every call lately meant bad news. Her father's care facility, another bill, another warning. Aaliyah was 28 years old and earning survival one tray at a time. To the diners, she was invisible. They didn't know she once argued linguistic theory in 3 languages at the Sorbonne. They didn't know she gave that life up when her father collapsed at a construction site in Brooklyn. They didn't know every shift kept him alive one more week. Victor, the floor manager, intercepted her near the kitchen. "Table 7, he said quietly. "Handle them perfectly." She followed his gaze. Julian Blackwood, billionaire, hedge fund royalty, untouchable. His fiancée sat beside him, stiff with discomfort. The woman's diamond ring caught the light. Her smile looked painted on. Aaliyah approached with her practiced smile, the one that hid everything. "Good evening." "VMR," Julian interrupted, not looking up. The word sliced through the room. Silence followed. Aaliyah froze for half a second. She understood him instantly. Julian had ordered wine in medieval Provençal, a dialect extinct for 700 years, not French, not even Old French, but a language scholars spent lifetimes studying. He did it slowly, clearly, loud enough for the room to hear. He wanted her confusion. He wanted her humiliation. To Julian Blackwood, the woman standing in front of him wasn't human. She was background noise in an expensive room, and he had decided to entertain himself. The other diners watched. Some pretended not to, others leaned in. Julian's fiancée touched his arm. "Julian, please." He brushed her off. In that moment, Aaliyah's entire life balanced on a sentence. Because correcting him meant power, but silence meant survival. She thought of her father, the envelope on her kitchen counter labeled Dad, $532, $1 week of decent care. Julian leaned back pleased, waiting. The manager watched from across the room, calculating, choose the billionaire, always choose the billionaire. Aaliyah's hands trembled. She could apologize. She could pretend ignorance. She could disappear into the kitchen and let someone else take the table. But Julian smiled again. And she saw it clearly. He didn't want wine, he wanted submission. He wanted to watch her squirm, to remind everyone in the room where they stood, above, below. The silence stretched. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "Stand up, baby girl, always stand up." Aaliyah took a breath. "Messier," she said calmly in flawless Provençal. Heads turned. Julian's smile faltered. "The way you use that term is incorrect," Aaliyah continued. "Arnott Daniel would have considered it vulgar." The room held its breath. Julian stiffened. "What?" She switched dialects effortlessly, her accent perfect. "You're not testing service quality. You're performing superiority with a language you don't understand." A woman at table 3 gasped. "This dialect wasn't created for men like you to cosplay intelligence," Aaliyah said. "It survived oppression. It carried stories through wars, and you're using it to humiliate a waitress." Julian's face darkened. Red crept up his neck. "What did you just say to me? If staying silent would save your family, would you still speak the truth?" "I corrected you," Aaliyah replied, politely. The room erupted in whispers. Victor went pale. His eyes darted between Aaliyah and Julian. Julian's fiancée stared at her plate. "Do you know who I am?" Julian's voice dropped low. Yes, Aaliyah said. Then you know what I can do to you. She met his eyes. Yes. The air felt electric, dangerous. Julian stood slowly. His chair scraped against the floor. Get me the check, he said. Aaliyah walked to the register. Her legs felt distant, separate from her body. What had she done? Victor appeared beside her. What were you thinking? He was wrong, she whispered. He's a billionaire. He was still wrong. Victor closed his eyes. Go to the back now. She moved toward the kitchen. Behind her, Julian's voice rose. My card is missing. Aaliyah stopped. All eyes turned. Julian stood by his table, patting his pockets, his face twisted with rage. She stole it, he said, pointing at Aaliyah. Her world tilted. The trap snapped shut. The restaurant froze. Aaliyah couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She's the only one who touched my wallet, Julian announced to the room, when she took my card for the check. Murmurs rippled through the diners. Victor's face drained of color. Sir, I'm sure there's been a mistake. Are you calling me a liar? Julian's voice carried pure venom. Aaliyah's phone buzzed in her pocket, the care facility. She knew without looking. I didn't take anything, she said quietly. Julian laughed, a cold sound. Of course you'd say that. His fiancée sat frozen, staring at her hands. Julian, she whispered, maybe you just misplaced. Don't, he snapped. Victor swallowed hard. Aaliyah, to clear this up, will need to check your apron. The words hit like a slap. You're serious? Aaliyah stared at him. It's procedure, Victor said, not meeting her eyes. Hands reached for her apron. In front of everyone. The other servers watched. Some looked away, others whispered. Aaliyah stood there while they searched her pockets, her apron, her dignity evaporating with each second. Nothing. Check her locker, Julian demanded. Sir. Now. Victor hesitated. Aaliyah, would you mind? Yes, she said, I mind. But Julian was already on his phone. I'm calling the police. This is theft. The room buzzed. Phones appeared. People filmed. Aaliyah saw her future collapse. Arrested, charged. No job, no money, her father alone. She thought about running, just walking out, but that would look guilty. Victor touched her elbow. Please, just let us check the locker, prove him wrong. She followed him to the back. Her legs shook. The locker opened, empty except for her jacket, her bag. Victor searched both. Nothing. Relief flooded through her. But when they returned to the dining room, Julian stood with two police officers. This woman stole my platinum card, he told them. Worth nothing, but the principle matters. One officer approached Aaliyah. Ma'am, we need to ask you some questions. She answered where she'd been, what she'd done, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. The second officer spoke quietly to Julian. Sir, has anyone else handled your wallet tonight? No one. And you're certain the card was in your wallet when you arrived? Absolutely. The officer's eyes narrowed slightly. Could you check your pockets again? Sometimes cards slip out. Julian's jaw clenched. I already checked. Humor me, the officer said, not a request. Julian patted his jacket pockets, his pants pockets. Nothing. Then he reached into his inner jacket pocket. His face changed. The card sat there, black gleaming. Silence crashed through the room. Julian stared at it. That wasn't there before. Sir, the officer said carefully, the card was in your pocket. She must have, Julian stopped. Because there was no way, no timeline where it made sense. The officer turned to Aaliyah. You're free to go, ma'am. Sorry for the inconvenience. But the damage was done. Everyone had watched, everyone had seen. Aaliyah accused, searched, humiliated. Julian tried to recover. I apologize, I could have sworn. You accuse me of theft, Aaliyah said quietly, in front of everyone. His fiancée stood abruptly. She pulled off her ring, set it on the table. We're done, she said to Julian. Then to Aaliyah, I'm sorry. She walked out. Julian stood frozen. The room watched his humiliation now. Then a voice cut through the whispers. That won't be necessary. Maximilian Rothwell stood, the owner, the real power. He was 73 years old and built this restaurant from nothing. Every diner knew his story. Mr. Blackwood, Rothwell said calmly, I think you should leave. Julian opened his mouth, closed it. Your behavior tonight was unacceptable, Rothwell continued. You will not return. Julian's face went white. Being banned from the Rothwell meant social death in certain circles. He left without another word. The diners erupted in conversation. Rothwell approached Aaliyah. Take the rest of the night off, paid. Thank you, she whispered. But Victor avoided her eyes. She knew. An hour later, after the restaurant closed, Victor called her into the office. Sit, he said. She sat. You embarrassed a billionaire, Victor said quietly. I can't keep you. The words didn't surprise her, but they still hurt. But I was right, she whispered. Victor didn't look up. I know. He tried to destroy me. I know. And you're firing me anyway. Victor finally met her eyes. Mr. Rothwell backed you tonight. That saved you from worse. But Julian Blackwood has friends, investors, people who matter to this business. More than I do. He didn't answer, didn't need to. You have until Friday, Victor said. I'll give you a reference, a good one. Small mercy. Aaliyah packed her locker. Her hands moved automatically. She walked out into the New York night, cold, empty. At home, her phone buzzed. The care facility, again. She answered. Ms. Vance, your father's payment is past due. We need to discuss. I know, she said. I'll have it. By Friday. I'll have it. She ended the call, sat on her floor, and finally let herself cry. But then her phone buzzed again. A bank notification. A private transfer. She stared at the number. Enough for 6 months of her father's care. No message, no sender name, just money. Aaliyah stared at her screen until her eyes blurred. Someone had watched tonight. Someone had seen. Someone had decided she deserved mercy. But who? Aaliyah woke up Friday morning with a decision to make. The money sat in her account, real, impossible, unexplained. She paid her father's care facility 6 months in advance. The relief felt physical. But questions burned in her mind. Who sent it? Why? What did they want? She visited her father that afternoon. He sat in the sunroom, lucid for the first time in weeks. Baby girl, he smiled. You look tired. I'm okay, Dad. He studied her face. You're lying. She told him everything. Julian, the humiliation, the firing, the mysterious money. Her father listened without interrupting. When she finished, he took her hand. You stood up, he said. That's all that matters. I lost my job. You kept your soul. Aaliyah wanted to believe him, but souls didn't pay rent. She spent the weekend applying for jobs, restaurant after restaurant. Each application felt heavier than the last. Monday morning, Victor called. Don't hang up, he said quickly. She almost did anyway. I have something for you, Victor continued. An address. Someone wants to meet you. Who? I can't say, but Aaliyah, this could change everything. She wanted to refuse, but curiosity won. The address led to a brownstone in the Upper East Side. Old money architecture, quiet power. Aaliyah climbed the steps, rang the bell. A woman answered, 60s, elegant, sharp eyes. Ms. Vance, I'm Margaret Chen. Please come in. The interior matched the exterior, tasteful, expensive, every piece carefully chosen. Margaret led her to a study. Books lined the walls, floor to ceiling. "Tea?" Margaret asked. "No, thank you." They sat. Margaret studied her for a long moment. "I was there that night," she said finally, "at the Rothwell, table 9. Aaliyah's memory flashed, the older woman alone, watching everything. "You sent the money," Aaliyah said. Margaret smiled. "Direct, I like that." "Why?" "Because 30 years ago I was you." The words hung between them. Margaret stood, walked to a shelf, pulled down a photograph. A younger version of herself, in a server's uniform, standing outside a restaurant. "I was 26, Margaret said, working at Le Bernardin. A banker tried something similar, different language, same cruelty." "What did you do?" "I stayed silent, smiled, survived." Margaret's voice hardened. "And I hated myself for 20 years. She set the photo down. "You did what I couldn't," Margaret continued. "You chose dignity over safety. That deserves support." Aaliyah felt tears building. "I lost everything." "No, you lost a job. There's a difference. I can't pay you back." Margaret laughed. "I'm not a loan shark, Miss Vance. Consider it an investment." "In what?" "In proof that standing up still matters." They talked for 2 hours. Margaret's story unfolded. Server to businesswoman, struggling to surviving to thriving. "I built a consulting firm," Margaret explained. "We help companies improve workplace culture, particularly around power dynamics." She paused. "I want to hire you." Aaliyah blinked. "As what?" "A consultant, your experience, your education, your courage. That's exactly what we need." "I'm not qualified." "You're overqualified, and you're exactly who I would have needed 30 years ago." The offer was real, salary, benefits, a future. Aaliyah should have felt relief, joy. Instead, she felt suspicious. "What's the catch?" she asked. Margaret smiled. "Smart woman, the catch is this: the work is hard. You'll face men like Julian Blackwood constantly. You'll have to stand up over and over, and not everyone will thank you for it." "That doesn't sound like a catch. That sounds like my life." "Exactly." Aaliyah took the job. She started the following Monday. The office was small, professional, a team of 12 people, all with similar stories. She learned quickly: workplace assessments, training programs, intervention strategies. But 3 weeks in, Margaret called her into the office. "We have a situation," Margaret said, "and I need your opinion." She handed Aaliyah a file. "Julian Blackwood's company." Aaliyah's stomach dropped. "His board contacted us," Margaret explained. "They're concerned about workplace culture, multiple complaints. They want an independent assessment." "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious." "He'll destroy me." "He'll try," Margaret said calmly, "but he's not in a position to destroy anyone right now." She handed Aaliyah another document. News articles, financial reports. Julian's hedge fund had lost 3 major clients. His engagement ended publicly. His reputation was crumbling. "What happened?" Aaliyah asked. "The same thing that always happens to men like him. His fiancée talked. Other women came forward. Investors got nervous." Margaret leaned forward. "This is your choice, Aaliyah. You can say no. I'll assign someone else. But you have a unique perspective on this particular man." Aaliyah stared at Julian's photo in the file. Part of her wanted revenge, wanted to walk into his office with power behind her. But another part remembered the cost, the fear, the humiliation. "I need to think about it," she said. "Take your time." That night, Aaliyah visited her father again. He was having a bad day, confused, distant. But when she held his hand, he squeezed back. "Dad," she whispered, "I don't know what to do." He didn't answer, couldn't answer. But she remembered his words. You stood up, that's all that matters. The next morning, she told Margaret yes. 2 days later, Aaliyah walked into Julian Blackwood's office building. Security checked her credentials, led her upstairs. The receptionist looked nervous. Mr. Blackwood is expecting you, conference room B. Aaliyah walked down the hallway. Her heels clicked on marble floors. She'd worn her best suit, her confidence like armor. The conference room door opened. Julian sat at the head of the table. He looked smaller than she remembered, tired, angry. When he saw her, his face went white. No, he said immediately, absolutely not. Mr. Blackwood, Aaliyah said calmly, your board hired our firm, I'm here to do my job. You, he laughed bitterly, this is a setup. It's an assessment. I want someone else. That's not your decision. Julian stood, I'll call my lawyers. Go ahead, Aaliyah said, but your board is waiting, and stalling will only make things worse. They stared at each other. The air crackled with unfinished business. Finally, Julian sat down. Fine, he said through clenched teeth, let's get this over with. Aaliyah opened her laptop. And the real work began. The assessment took 3 weeks. Aaliyah interviewed 47 employees. She reviewed complaints. She analyzed patterns. Julian avoided her when possible. When they crossed paths, he looked through her. But the data painted a clear picture. Julian Blackwood's company was toxic. Fear-based management, harassment complaints buried, talent bleeding out. On the final day, Aaliyah presented her findings to the board. Julian sat in the corner, silent, seething. Your culture problem starts at the top, Aaliyah said directly, and until that changes, nothing else will. The board members exchanged glances. Are you suggesting we replace Mr. Blackwood? The chairman asked. I'm suggesting you give him a choice, change or step aside. Julian exploded. This is revenge, pure and simple. Aaliyah turned to face him. No, she said calmly. Revenge would be easy. This is accountability. There's a difference. You humiliated me at that restaurant. You humiliated yourself. I just refuse to pretend otherwise. The room went quiet. Mr. Blackwood, the chairman said carefully, perhaps we should discuss this privately. Julian stood. His chair fell backward. I built this company, he said. I made you all rich. And you made the workplace unbearable, the chairman replied. That's the problem. Julian looked around the table. No allies, no escape. He walked out. The door slammed behind him. 3 days later, the announcement came. Julian Blackwood was stepping down as CEO, effective immediately. The news spread quickly. Financial blogs, industry gossip, social media. Aaliyah read the headlines with mixed feelings. She'd won, but it felt hollow. Margaret found her in the office that evening. You okay? Margaret asked. I don't know. Victory guilt. Maybe. Margaret sat down. Let me tell you something. Men like Julian Blackwood don't change because we're nice to them. They change when the consequences become real. He lost everything. He lost power, there's a difference. He's still wealthy, still connected. He'll land somewhere. And the people he hurt. They finally got heard because of you. Aaliyah wanted to believe that mattered. 2 weeks later, she received a letter. No return address, handwritten. She recognized the handwriting immediately. Julian's fiancé, former fiancé. The letter was short. Thank you for that night at the restaurant. Watching you stand up gave me the courage to leave. I thought I'd share something you should know. The money you received. Julian figured out who sent it. He tried to interfere, threatened a lawsuit. Margaret shut him down immediately. She's been protecting you this whole time. You have people in your corner, remember that. Also, Julian never learned medieval Provençal. He memorized one phrase from a podcast to impress his friends. You destroyed him with actual knowledge. I found that deeply satisfying. Wishing you well. Claire. Aaliyah read the letter 3 times. Then she called Margaret. You didn't tell me Julian tried to interfere, Aaliyah said. Silence on the line. You had enough to worry about, Margaret said finally. You protected me. I invested in you. I protect my investments. Aaliyah smiled, thank you. Don't thank me, just pass it forward someday. 6 months passed. Aaliyah thrived at the consulting firm. She led assessments, trained managers, changed policies. She visited her father every week. Some days were good, some were hard, but he was cared for, comfortable. One afternoon, Victor called again. I have news, he said. Maximilian Rothwell wants to see you. Why? He didn't say, but he asked specifically for you. Aaliyah met Rothwell at the restaurant, the Rothwell Lounge, scene of everything. He sat at his usual table, the owner's perch. Ms. Vance, he said warmly, thank you for coming. Of course. I'll be direct, I'm retiring, and I'm looking for someone to consult on the transition, someone who understands service, respect, dignity. He paused. I'd like to hire your firm. Specifically, I'd like to hire you. Aaliyah stared at him, Mr. Rothwell. I should have done more that night, he interrupted. I should have acted faster, protected you better. You banned Julian Blackwood, that's not nothing. It wasn't enough. They talked for an hour, the consulting contract, the timeline, the vision. As Aaliyah stood to leave, Rothwell stopped her. One more thing, he said. We have a position opening, assistant general manager. I think you'd be perfect. I'm not looking for a restaurant job. I know, but consider it anyway. We need people who have stood on both sides, who understand what power actually means. Aaliyah thought about it for days. Finally, she called Margaret. What do you think? Aaliyah asked. I think you'll figure it out, Margaret said. You always do. In the end, Aaliyah split her time, consulting 3 days a week, restaurant management 2 days. She trained new servers. She revised policies. She built a culture where speaking up wasn't career suicide. And when she stood in the Rothwell Lounge, watching the dining room, she thought about that night. Julian Blackwood ordering wine in a dead language. Her choice to respond. Everything that followed. She'd lost a job, but she'd found something bigger. Proof that power doesn't just disappear. It redistributes. To people willing to stand up. To people willing to protect each other. To people who remember what it felt like to be powerless. One evening, a new server approached her. Young, nervous, uncomfortable. Table 12, the server said quietly. The man is being difficult. Aaliyah walked over. The diner was dismissive, condescending, testing boundaries. She handled it calmly, professionally, firmly. Afterward, the young server stared at her. How did you do that? He asked. Aaliyah smiled. Someone once told me standing up is all that matters, she said. Everything else is just details. She walked back to her office. On her desk sat a photo, her and her father from last week, both smiling. Beside it, Margaret's card, the consulting firm. And underneath, a note she'd written to herself. Power doesn't disappear, it just decides who gets to survive it. So choose carefully who you give it to. And fight like hell to take it back when someone uses it to break you. Aaliyah looked at the note. Then she smiled. And got back to work. Is intelligence worth anything in a world where silence pays better? Was Julian really the villain? Or was Aaliyah naive about how the world actually works? If you were Aaliyah, would you do it again, knowing you'd lose everything?